I don't want to be asked to join the board just because I'm the token. We've heard this a lot. In this video, we're discussing tokenism on boards. Here's 4 examples of classic toxic token thinking. They were under pressure to hire a woman. They only hired her to look good. The hiring process secretly sought to appoint someone from an ethnic minority. It wasn't a fair process. They weren't hired purely on merit, based on skills and experience, because they were looking for a woman. There weren't many people to choose from since they were looking for an ethnic minority, so the bar was lower. Clearly, this is a very complex issue and one worth thinking about if we want to improve the mix of skills, experiences, and perspectives around the boardroom. We posted a blog on this last week, and here today we have Kieran, Tony, and Scarlett to discuss the topic. I'm Sarah, and I'm the CEO of Dynamic Boards. We advertise non-exec vacancies. Kieran, can you introduce yourself and kick off the discussion by telling us where you've seen or experienced tokenism?
Thanks, Sarah. Hello, everyone. My name is Kieran Moynihan. I'm the managing partner of Board Excellence, a board consulting practice that supports boards across a wide range of sectors in the UK. I think, as Sarah's pointed out, the whole area of tokenism is very much quite a common area. As we support boards week to week, we often, unfortunately, come across situations where there is a token board director, whether that's from either female or from an ethnic background. And to be honest, when I see that case, I always feel it genuinely is doing a disservice to, first of all, the director that was appointed, secondly, to the board itself, and I suppose most importantly of all, to the shareholders and stakeholders of that organisation, you know, who are really looking to see, you know, a genuine mix and vibrant range of thinking styles on the board. So unfortunately, Sarah, it's a real life common problem that we often see across the UK.
Kieran, can I just ask one question on that? What specifically makes them a token hire? Because someone watching this might think you mean that they're a woman or they're an ethnic minority, but can you just unpick what specifically makes them a token hire?
The real telltale sign of that is where you see, for example, a female board director that was appointed 3 years ago to a board of 9 or 10 male directors, and 3 years on, she is still the only female board director. And in discussions with the chair is very honest and said that we ticked the box. We were under pressure on our board diversity. We're getting some pressure from our investors, our shareholders. We've appointed our female non-exec and we're done, basically. Yeah, no, Sarah, in terms of our Scarlett, in terms of impact, we find that in many cases, the board director that was appointed, in this case, a female, genuinely understands that. And while, you know, particularly experienced board directors will still do their very best to contribute, it can be disempowering. And just the fact that you were appointed genuinely for the wrong reasons, rather than the skills and the experience and the judgment and the different perspectives you're bringing. And in many cases, female non-exec directors, younger non-exec directors from different ethnic backgrounds have often said to me when I'm interviewing them as part of a board evaluation, they would say, you know, I'm the token board director. I'm the only female here, and I don't think we're going to have any more females anytime soon. So that's unfortunately what we see week to week in the UK and Ireland and internationally.
Yeah, I'm Tony Simpson. I'm a board advisor and part of the board practice at Savannah. Look, I totally agree with Kieran. There's something else on top of that that makes it even worse. And that is a lot of organizations come to me saying we want somebody diverse to go on this board. But these are often for jobs that are unremunerated. And there's a backlash now, especially with female, black or other black executives going onto boards, refusing to do it because they're not paid. And I often say to clients, if you don't value diversity enough to pay it on your board, why should somebody go onto that board? And that's a really important point, because actually all we're doing is perpetuating the economic myth that there's no value with somebody, and also we're not actually putting money into diverse communities. And so I've had people now turning down roles which they're qualified for because they're not being paid for, and they've never been paid for. But the point is the organizations advertising those jobs don't realise that traditionally a non-exec role was given to probably middle-aged white guys who'd made lots of money in the city or elsewhere and didn't need the money. Now, if we want true diversity, if we want somebody who's under 40 or comes from a socially diverse background, they need paying for that. It's not for free. And so that is actually an impediment, and it's being disguised as tokenism by some of these boards.
Mm.
Yeah, definitely. I think, hi everyone, I'm Scarlett Brown. I'm the other co-founder of Dynamic Boards. I think for me, you know, one of the drivers for us writing this blog initially, you know, both Sarah and I have talked a lot about tokenism in the past, and it's something that we've been worried about for quite a long time. I think, you know, ever since we started talking about diversity on boards. The thing that worries me now is how this kind of, you know, how the fear of tokenism and the way that it's operating within board practice and board recruitment is stopping good people get into those good roles. Just like Tony said, you know, that organisation would benefit hugely from the diversity and also the experience that person brings, but they won't take the role because they are either going to be treated as a token or are concerned about it. And I think it's, you know, for me, we've talked a lot about this before, but that, you know, it's about people being inspired and wanting to join organizations, and if they don't feel like they're being recruited for the value that they will genuinely bring, and this kind of fear of being painted as the token, or of even having to say yourself, you know, I am the token white person, or I am the token woman, what that really does to people just not wanting to join boards, and what impact that's going to have for diversity and for getting a good mix of people on boards longer down the line.
Scarlett, you raise a good point there. I think for me personally, I joined the board of a specialist bank when I was 28 or 29, I can never remember which, and I was both the only female on that board, and I was the only younger person. Everyone else was in their 60s, 70s. And I would never have described myself as the token millennial or the token female on that board. And I've been thinking about this as we were writing this blog, of why not. And I think there's kind of two sides to it. One is because I genuinely felt that my skills and experience are useful on that board, and my experience on the board showed me that they were. Secondly, because I do think they appraised my skills and my experience when they interviewed me. So even if they did believe that having a woman would be good and having a millennial would be good, I felt that they thought I had the skills and experience to be good at the role. And then lastly, because I genuinely think my millennial perspective and being a woman added an extra dimension to the board conversation, which was helpful. Like, I don't think that was tokenistic. I think it was an asset to the board to have a better mix of perspectives around it. But there's so many like micro behaviors that can lead you to feel like you are a token gesture to that board. And I'm very grateful that they didn't make me feel that. I never felt that. But clearly from the conversations we're having, a lot of the time people are feeling that. And it's kind of a sad mirror to what you're seeing in society. So society is raising up the fact that, I mean, particularly this year, we have a small number of ethnic minorities on boards, and we really need to improve that. And the mirror to that is that people then think, I don't want that to be the only reason that you want me. So we've got something that's a really helpful challenge, but equally it's a challenge to do it well and to do it with integrity. So,
yeah. I want to give the reverse of that story, actually. So in my 30s, I was put onto the board of the police authority in the county where I live. And for years, it was a 4-year term. I only did 2.5 years. And I look back and I thought, gosh, I was a failure. I didn't do my job properly because I left. Actually, the failure, as I've got older, I realised was the authority themselves. I was never made to feel included. I was not a member of a golf club. The only reason they wanted me is because they wanted diversity. And yet the board itself didn't embrace the diversity. And so I always felt I was going on my own. I sit in boardrooms, go for my papers and go home. I wouldn't go to the, go for restaurants with everybody else. And after a bit, I just drifted off and fell out of passion with that role. And it's something I could do now, but the point is, to your point, if I had a board who'd hired me because of my differences rather than my ability to be the same as them, it would have worked. So tokenism in one way will fail if the board itself doesn't embrace the diversity of that individual. And I think that's a really important point.
Yeah, to Tony's point there as well, Sarah and Scarlett, I think the the role and the mindset of the board chair really needs to be put under the spotlight here.
Yeah.
Like, in my view, the board chair has a fundamental responsibility to their shareholders and stakeholders to really get the very best out of every board member. So when a new board member joins, I think it's extremely important, and I always set the bar high for a board chair to really not only help them settle in quickly, but to really give them the confidence to genuinely contribute, add significant value. And, you know, I've had a number of cases where with board chairs, we've had some interesting debates as regards how well they're enabling new board members. And I think it comes back to the broader diversity and composition discussion, where I've often said to a board chair, why are you stopping now in terms of really improving the mix on the board? You've seen the value that this particular new, whether it's a younger or female or a particular ethnic background non-exec, you see the value they're adding. Why are you stopping?
It's funny, isn't it? Because it's a real kind of evidence that if you just see diversity as something that's done once in a short time recruitment, and then you just leave the board to it and do exactly what you did before, you won't really see the benefits of having that mix.
Absolutely. And I think that, you know, for me, the real responsibility to avoid a tokenism scenario actually lies with the board chair and with a nominations committee in certain board situations, where they should see it as an ongoing refreshing and strengthening of the board and improving the mix and the diversity of thinking styles. And that is not a one-time event. It's a genuine evolution over the years, where at each opportunity where they get to strengthen the board or add a new board member, or a board member is retiring or stepping down, that they genuinely grasp that opportunity to really enrich the board with a great mix of perspectives.
Tony, from your perspective as a working in recruitment area, do you think it's possible to run a recruitment process at any level where a particular kind of diversity specification is given, but that's not done tokenistically, that someone can say we need someone from an ethnic minority background, or we need a woman, and that's not being done tokenistically within the way that you recruit? Can it be done well?
I think, look, we have to give a diverse shortlist to clients, and people need to be hired on merit. We're not doing our job properly if we don't give a spectrum of candidates. If we just take the candidate brief of the client that's given me and we don't challenge it, we're not doing our job properly, because we can't expect our clients to be as nuanced in terms of what's going on in the market as we are, because I'm out talking to people every day. But I'll give you a little anecdote of I was working for a client who wanted somebody diverse, and their product was with a very diverse product in terms of gender, and the whole board was middle-aged and male. Somebody who felt they should take that job as somebody been in and around that organisation for many years, and I not only got a letter, an email, but I also got a phone call from the individual who said to me, I'm assuming that a female got it, because there's no point in me going for anything else. And it drew me to the point that we talked about earlier. You know, people who are used to privilege, when people are used to privilege, parity can seem like oppression. And so for this individual talking like that, I realized, oh my gosh. And actually, it's not my job to put them in, you know, to point that out to an individual, but it was a reality, and people don't see it like that. But it's tough.
Yeah, definitely. I think for me, you know, I definitely saw through that when kind of women on boards was one of the bigger agendas, and when it was first coming out, sort of 2012 onwards, you know, tokenism for me then at least was very much it was something to reject against a diversity initiative. It was used as a question around whether or not any of the women who were appointed during that time were good enough, or were old enough, or wise enough, or qualified enough to do that role. And you know, for me, the kind of tokenism claim just has such a kind of toxic potential for making a director doubt why they should be there.
But it's very dangerous, Scarlett, because what was happening then was a lot of the women who were getting major positions on boards were those who had the traits and behaviours of men. And so in reality,
particularly the men who were already on boards,
the men who were on the board. So it wasn't very diverse at all. And it's a bit like talking about diversity in terms of ethnicity and race. You know, a lot of people who go onto boards still went to Millfield and on follow the British Guards and went to Durham or Oxbridge. Nothing wrong with that, but they are still being hired in the shape and guise of people who work there. And true diversity and inclusion is when you take people who've got a different life experience and a different path to going with it, because that's when you'll get a board that has, that's to Kieran's point earlier, a spectrum of interests and a spectrum of advice that the organisations need. But people, I think that some, chairmen in some companies, work forensically hard to actually find somebody who looks exactly like them. It's the reverse, and that for them is diversity. Tony, could you get me somebody just like this, who's diverse? Well, that there is tokenism. I could have 25 black faces and females, but
as long as they all think like me.
Yeah, exactly.
The other area as well here, I think, Sarah, that's worth highlighting is the fact that tokenism itself can discourage younger potential board directors, first-time board directors, female board directors from different socio and ethnic backgrounds from engaging with boards and wanting to join a board.
Yeah.
Because we're at the stage now where I think is really important in the UK and Ireland internationally that we significantly expand the universe of potential board directors, right? In so many sectors, we've relied for so long on such a small group of board directors who have, in some cases, significant number of multiple roles. And what we want to do as society is evolving and modernizing is just move towards a far more open type model where there's a lot of first-time board directors. They'll still go through all the detailed assessment processes, but any good board chair or nominations committee will see this person has serious caliber, genuine commitment and potential. So that's why I think tokenism is important, that we kind of work towards significantly reducing it, because I think that will in itself encourage a wider group of particularly first-time board directors with what we want to encourage.
Our feeling is, and we wrote it in this blog, is actually if you're going to have good integrity in a process, if you think your board would benefit from having a better mix, whether that's gender, age, ethnicity, or any other characteristic, then and obviously skills and experience as well, then it's worth having integrity and being open and honest about it when you write your spec, because then it really encourages people from that background to actually apply, which they might not feel as encouraged about otherwise, but also you're being straight up about it and people respect that. And then you start avoiding some of those questions that you had there, Tony, from the man who felt like he didn't get the role because of his gender. Whereas actually, he may have not got the role because he was rubbish. Actually, you can avoid that by being a little bit clearer and more transparent in how you communicate it. That was one thought. And the other thought was, we've been deeply frustrated when we hear about processes where someone says, look, we really want to encourage ethnic minorities to apply for this role, or women or whatever. And then they get 2 applicants. And this is search firms sometimes that are being paid good money. They get 1 or 2 people that meet the brief, and then the company chooses from that. And actually, we think you've got to go, this is part of why we set up dynamic boards, you've got to go wider, you've got to advertise, you've got to get a really great mix of applicants in order for the person that you choose at the end of it to know that they were the best, rather than to know that they were the only one that was found, which doesn't feel as compelling and as strong.
Yeah, no, I think that's right. And I think, for the executive search industry, the onus is on them actually to provide a spectrum of candidates. The problem we have in our industry is, our boards are also a spectrum, and often the chairman of the board is the person who is saying he wants diversity, but deep down is hoping that you'll pull out that nugget, which is 10 times better than everybody else, and somebody who looks like him or her. And that's our reality. So I often find myself passionate about the diversity and inclusion piece, but having to play towards it. And of course, I've got a very good contact network in the city, and I put people who X, Y, and Z, so they can go, thank God for that. He'll get me what I need, and I've gone through that, and actually I've used an organisation who've got a good track record in this. So that is also a double-edged sword. So there is a duty of care. But actually, the whole question on this is about tokenism. Tokenism, if tokenism is used by organisations, it's actually a lost opportunity. for embedding somebody diverse in the organisation. So, and it's to Kieran's point, it's the chairman's role to make sure that his board has got the right people in there. If any board has got somebody who's on there from a token perspective, I would be looking at changing the chairman rather than changing the board out.
And do you think that's changing, both of you? Like, you think, in kind of being more future looking, are we seeing more chairs and boards taking this issue seriously and coming with a genuine desire to appoint somebody who is diverse or from a different than the people that they would have had before? Do we have an optimistic angle on this, or are we still kind of pushing against the same arguments we might have been doing 5 or 10 years ago?
Yeah, Sarah, interestingly enough, one of the things that we have found, particularly for larger companies, that's improving this area is the whole environment, social and governance. There is such a focus on ESG at the moment by particularly institutional investors that a lot of board chairs are starting to kind of read the mood music a little bit and to realize that not only their investors, but in some cases their customers and their broader stakeholders, I think, are really starting to expect more and more of a diverse mix on the board. And I think the days now of having a company, so for example, I saw a case recently of an all-male board with 9 board members and 90% of their customers are women. And I kind of said to him, how on earth in 2020 do you think that's tenable? So I think there are some encouraging signs that are happening at the kind of stock market company level, which is obviously the level that we can see and we can see data for. And I'm hoping in time that ESG in particular, as it's happening more and more in private companies as well, people are just starting to realize that it really is the right thing to do in terms of improving the mix and diversity on board. And I think with that, there will be more and more pushback. And I think there is more pushback against tokenism.
On that, I think that post-COVID, I'm currently working on a chair role, which is they usually come around every 4 years. We're starting to see the first chairs now coming around for a world which is post-COVID. So what is the role of a chairman when you've got a disparate workforce, a disparate board? You can't sit in a board meeting. There are no rewards now of having a nice meal in the city or flying off your global boardroom now. It's being done on Zoom as we are today. So the motivation to be on a board is gone for some people because it's seen as a reward. How they function, what it does for them is gone. So I think we're going to start seeing some real changes. For the first time, I had somebody who was always fancied themselves as the chair of this organisation I'm working for now say, it's probably not for me anymore. I don't want to do 3 days a month. I've got other things I want to do, because they weren't going to get that weekend in the city, all expenses paid, and that trip to New York once a year. They just had to do the job. And so you'll start seeing actually a different type of chair coming on as businesses become more organic and part of to the ESG point, part of the community. It's people who've got a different mindset and a different motivation for wanting to do the job. So I think it's to your question, I think it's good.
What about you, Sarah? Are you optimistic that this stuff can change and we can see an end to tokenism?
Well, Tony, I like your point there. It's like we're stripping back a lot of roles to the core substance of what
it actually is.
and that's fantastic. Hopefully that means we will operate with greater integrity. People will take on the roles for the right reasons. And if we can run processes that mean that we encourage a much wider pool of people to consider board roles, then I think we can deal with the volume issue, and that is, I don't think enough people hear about the roles and apply for the roles to be able to genuinely give boards choice when they decide that they do want to have a better mix. So I really hope we can improve our processes, hold that integrity, and I hope that will change perceptions, both for individuals that are joining boards and also for the companies themselves. I think we'll wrap it up there. So thank you very much to Tony, Kieran, Scarlett. Thank you for the chat today. That was great. And hopefully we can gradually, through some of these conversations, see an end to toxic tokenism.
Thanks very much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.